I told you. The runoff from this historic monstrosity is eroding the pristine shoreline. It simply has to go.
Good heavens. Look at this signature.
I was drinking coffee on my dock when the bulldozer came through the fog. 6 in the morning. Tuesday. The low rumble of diesel drifting across the water before I could even see it. Then it emerged from the haze, treads grinding slowly toward the stone arch bridge my great-grandfather had built by hand in 1923. 100 years of limestone and careful work, and Sylvia Morton wanted it gone before breakfast. My name is Daniel Harris, civil engineer. 3 months ago, I inherited my great-grandfather's waterfront property in the Texas Hill Country, and I thought I had finally caught a break after a year that had taken more than I want to talk about. The cabin smelled like cedar and old coffee, and the bridge sat at the edge of the property like it had always been there because it had. Henry Harris quarried that limestone himself after coming home from the Great War. He laid every block with his own hands. For 100 years, it carried fishermen and kids and neighbors helping neighbors across the water. Sylvia Morton had been HOA president for 2 years, and in that time she had turned Silver Pines Estates into her personal kingdom, spotless white Mercedes, pearls at the grocery store, the kind of woman who decided what a neighborhood was supposed to look like and then eliminated anything that disagreed. She looked at my rusted pickup and my stone bridge and my calloused hands and made her decision before she ever said a word to me. The certified letter arrived 3 weeks after I moved in. My bridge violated community architectural standards, 30 days to remove it or face $500 a day in fines. I actually laughed reading it. That bridge was standing decades before her subdivision existed. I went to the HOA meeting to explain myself. The room smelled like floor wax and fear. Neighbors stared at the table. Nobody made eye contact. Sylvia sat at the head like she was running a corporation and gave me the smile people use when they think you're too simple to understand what's happening. Times change, Mr. Harris, she said. Progress requires sacrifice. I drove home and started digging through my great-grandfather's boxes. What I found changed everything. Buried in a folder labeled Lake Harris System. 1923 was the original construction contract. Henry Harris wasn't just a farmer who built a nice bridge. He was listed as chief hydraulic engineer for the entire lake and dam project, and attached to his deed was a water rights agreement granting him and his heirs perpetual flow management authority over the lake. Flow management authority, the legal power to control the water level. I sat with that document a long time. Then I cross-referenced it with the resort's bank loan. Their $4 million financing required the lake to stay within 18 inches of capacity. If it dropped below that line, the entire loan would be called immediately. Their grand opening was 12 weeks away with $200,000 in deposits already collected. Sylvia's family had personally invested $500,000. Victor, her husband, had co-signed using their house as collateral. She had spent months obsessing over my bridge. She never once looked at what was underneath it. I gave her one chance. At the final HOA meeting, I laid everything on the table. Keep the bridge as a protected historic structure, and I guarantee stable water levels for the resort. Everyone wins. She looked at me across that folding table and said she didn't negotiate with people like me. Monday morning, I arrived at the dam with my attorney and a folder containing 100 years of legal documents. Sylvia was already there with private security and 3 deputies and enough lawyers to fill a courtroom. She planted herself in front of the control housing like she could stop what was coming with her presence alone. The sheriff read our federal water rights authority and told her to step aside. She screamed at the cameras. People like him don't belong in our community. I knelt at the access panel. The brass wheel my great-grandfather had installed turned smoothly, 3 clockwise rotations. Deep inside the dam, century-old machinery groaned awake. Water surged through the bypass channels with a sound like thunder rolling under the earth. 20 minutes later, the resort docks were sitting in mud. Sylvia stood at the edge of the water watching $4 million settle into the lake bed, and I walked over and said the only thing left to say, "I offered you a deal. You chose this." She never responded. She just stood there watching the water drop, and I think somewhere in that moment she finally understood what my great-grandfather had always known. Some things get built to last, and some people spend their whole lives trying to tear them down without ever understanding what they're really up against. That evening I found an envelope in the bottom of the old box, my great-grandfather's handwriting on the front. One page inside yellowed with age. "Mark, if you are reading this, it means you stayed, and that matters. I built redundancy into everything, the bridge, the dam, all of it. Because I knew someday someone would come along who confused access with ownership. You don't have to be loud. You just have to understand the water better than they do." Henry. I sat on the dock a long time after that. The lake was already rising again, quiet and steady the way it had been for 100 years. Some legacies are worth every fight it takes to protect them,